In August last year, I became a part of a group of about 20 Australian Chinese parents who became really concerned about something called the Safe Schools Coalition Program. There was a blog that was circulating wildly among the Australian Chinese social media, and many parents, including myself, were very alarmed by what we found out about this program. At that time, I thought I had to do something about it, so I contacted my local MP, Mr. Damien Tudorhope, who I knew at that time, who was actually publicly speaking against this program. And I explained that our group of parents wanted to start a petition. We expected we would probably get about 500 signatures, and so I started up an anonymous email and started emailing them away and started an anonymous postbox, and I just expected that we were going to get a small number of signatures and hand it into the Parliament, and that was it. For the next month, I did nothing else except count signatures, because 17,000 signatures came in from Australian Chinese parents. Chinese parents took the petition to their schools, to the streets, to their churches, to local business owners, and 17,000 of them just signed, black and white, against this program. It triggered a parliamentary debate on the issue, and at the end, I decided to take it to the media to talk about it, because I felt that 17,000 concerned parents' voice needed to be heard. People needed to hear the truth about this program. So what is the Safe Schools Coalition program? It was developed by La Trobe University Australian Research Centre in Sex, Health and Society. It was first implemented in Victoria, and then in 2013 became federally funded and implemented throughout Australia. After criticisms from a group of MPs in the Liberal Party over the appropriateness of its content, a federal review of the program was conducted in February 2016, where a number of links from its website and other material which was considered inappropriate was removed. And, importantly, parental consent was recommended. New South Wales was one of the states that followed the federal review recommendations, whereas other states, notably Victoria, South Australia and ACT, chose to self-fund the program and therefore not follow federal review guidelines, and therefore not requiring parental consent. The Safe Schools program was marketed as an anti-bullying program, but the founder of the program herself, Ross Ward, said that it was a program that promotes sexual and gender diversity, and so it does. I'm now going to show you some specific content of the Safe School resources that demonstrate this promotion of sexual diversity and gender ideologies. Role-playing is an integral part of this program, where underage children are asked to role-play as promiscuous bisexual 18-year-olds with multiple sexual partners, or a middle-aged married man having affairs with same-sex partners. Parents have reported that students were asked to choose a same-sex celebrity and describe how they may feel sexually attracted to this celebrity. The very first lesson of the All of Us resource, the main part of the Safe Schools program for Year 7, involves a scenario where students were asked to imagine themselves as a 16-year-old same-sex attracted person, and then they were asked a series of questions regarding how comfortable they feel being involved in different scenarios with their partners. The people who felt most uncomfortable about their same-sex scenarios had to remain standing to explain to the rest of the class their reason for feeling uncomfortable. As you can see in the federal review, the teachers themselves were saying that this is inappropriate because there are many students who may feel uncomfortable if they come from a conservative background. In the Oh My God, I'm Queer resource, it explains clearly here to students that gender is different to their biological sex. Sex is your wibbly-wobbly bits, whereas gender is in your mind. It states that gender is something that changes, it is fluid, and that you can feel like a girl one time and feel like a boy another time. Even though there is a very small part of the population, about 0.001%, that experiences what's called gender dysphoria, this idea that gender and biological sex are different has no scientific basis, and it confuses children. Here are some Safe Schools Coalition program posters that participating schools are encouraged to put up in the corridors and around the school. I think you can see clearly that it does advocate students being able to choose their uniform according to their self-chosen gender. In the Kickstarting Your Safe Schools resource, it also encourages schools to allow students to use bathrooms of their self-identified gender, as you can see. The Safe Schools program also teaches age-inappropriate sexual content to underage children. The Oh My God, I'm Queer and Oh My God, I'm Trans resource have links to a website called Minus18, which was notorious for its advice on chest binding and penis tucking. It teaches children how to erase their browser history to hide it from their parents so that the parents can't see their internet search history. And it teaches children to access blocked sites at school, which they might be blocked at home. It also links to the Scarletine website, which teaches about threesomes and sex toys. The preschool equivalent of the Safe Schools program is called Start Early, and in Victoria, Respectful Relationship Program, which is a resource available for individual preschools and schools and childcare to implement. It has a list of books that are suitable for children aged 4 and above. They include resources that teach us about the experience of having same-sex parents and about the experience of children transitioning their gender. I think some of you might have seen the ad recently about the gender fairy. That is one of the books, but there are many, many more. These materials are often taught without first obtaining consent from parents, and we have these firsthand from parents. So what has it got to do with same-sex marriage? Does the Safe School program have anything to do with it? Are the claims of the ad true? That once same-sex marriage is legalized, that programs similar to the Safe Schools program will become widespread and compulsory? What we have seen on the ground is that it is individual teachers and principals who are pushing these programs into schools. Now, it becomes very difficult because of political correctness for parents to actually voice their concern about these programs. Federal review guidelines made it easier for some state schools in New South Wales because they are meant to take the matter to the PNC. Of course, we know that in New South Wales, some schools didn't even do that, either before or after the federal review. But in most situations, after the federal review guidelines were released, parents could demand to have input and negotiations could happen. What legalizing same-sex marriage has done overseas is take away parents' choice. Fishney's Girls' School is a Jewish school in England which legalized same-sex marriage in 2013. The year before, the school passed Education Authority inspections with no problems at all. The year after same-sex marriage had been legalized, the school failed these inspections 3 times in a row because it refused to teach materials about sexuality, homosexuality, and gender fluidity. This is despite the inspectors finding that the school culture was clearly focused on teaching pupils to respect everybody regardless of beliefs and lifestyle. The Education Authority said that gender reassignment and sexual orientation studies were necessary for children to be raised with fundamental British values, and so the school must teach these programs or face the prospect of being closed down. Canada legalized same-sex marriage in 2005. Recently, there's an ad with Steve Toulouse, who is a parent in Canada, and he, about 7 years ago, requested that his children, primary school, give him notice of when LGBTI content would be presented in class so that he could withdraw his children from classes that would present homosexuality as normal because it conflicted with his family's Greek Orthodox faith. The school board said that because the sexual gender diversity program was so embedded throughout the curriculum, his request was impractical, if not impossible. Also, school administrators considered that it was a form of bullying to LGBTI students to have kids opt out of LGBTI-related content. Mr. Toulouse took the school to court and lost last year. The court said that even though it agreed that Mr. Toulouse's religious freedom was being infringed upon, it also referenced the Education Policy Directive, which required that all policies, guidelines, procedures, and practices are anti-homophobic and anti-heterosexist. The same policy directive also required teachers to take responsibility to modify personal beliefs and biases that are inconsistent with equity and inclusive education principles. One thing of note is that these kind of ideas are exactly what's in the Safe Schools program, that teachers are meant to identify and modify beliefs that are heteronormative, and that teachers have to take responsibility to make sure that the classroom is anti-homophobic. So why did I take action against Safe Schools program and now against same-sex marriage? Because I can see that the aim of the LGBTI movement behind the push of the Safe Schools program and now same-sex marriage is to limit the freedoms of our next generation. It's to limit the freedom of speech. It's to limit the freedom of religion. I see that Christian school children are being isolated and reverse bullied into complying with the LGBTI doctrine at school. They're no longer able to express their biblical belief in the traditional view of marriage. I heard a grandparent say that his grandchild, SRC representative, was taken to the principal's office because he refused to help organize a Wear It Purple Day, even though he explained that it was against his personal faith to celebrate somebody else's sexuality. From the Chinese family's point of view, one of the reasons why Chinese parents react so strongly against the safe schools program is because it means that the state is teaching them a set of values that is different to the child's family values. It is pitching the children against their background family, and parents feel they are losing the right to pass on their own family values and traditional cultural beliefs on gender and marriage. After the first Vote No ad aired, the media went after the 3 moms in the ad, seeking to discredit them. I think you can see from my presentation that everything that was said in the ad can be substantiated. So there was a petition to try to get me deregistered as a doctor, even though my views on traditional marriage has nothing to do with my ability to look after patients in a professional capacity. So after this petition, many Australian Chinese community, as well as the wider community, contacted me to show their support and voice their fears. Does that mean that if same-sex marriage passes, the same would happen to them? Are they still allowed to voice their beliefs that marriage is between a man and a woman after the law passes? Do parents still have the right to voice their concerns about safe schools? I think we have been so blessed in Australia that we have had freedom of religion and speech for all of our history, and we have never had to fight for it. Unlike people who have come from countries where these freedoms are limited, I think many Australians might not appreciate how society can change very fast if these freedoms are taken away. These things can change. It has changed in the UK and in Canada, and it can change here. I can see that right now, if same-sex marriage becomes law, there is no adequate protection for freedom of conscience, freedom of speech and religion in the school grounds or in the community. And that is why I take action. Thank you.